Thank you, Pedro. Thank you to you. So, we have a question by Alice Binazzi. We can read it in the chat. That is to me and to Sandra. If Sandra wants to add something to what I will answer, she's welcome, of course. So the question is, thank you. How is this project will interrelate with or address the international legal standards for women's rights and girl-child rights, also ratified by European Union countries and to be implemented in the EU national legislation? Of course, it is of absolute importance, but we will work basically on the availability of data, because what happens very often is that we have some political indications, suggestions, or laws, and they are asking to measure targets and goals. What we really have as a problem, and this is also part of a second question that you do about the linkage with Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development, the global commitment on the Sustainable Development Goals number 5, is that very often we have political indications that cannot be, I would say, sustained using indicators. So one of the main goals of this project is to try to understand which are the data that we have at regional level. This is the big point. The big point is that we need a vaster, more indicators at NUTS2 level. And this is the point. This is really the point. What you say is absolutely important and relevant, even if I think that now it has more a national level relevance, even if it may be interesting to develop it also at regional level. We need first a map of the data that are available at the regional level. And when we have a mapping of this data, we can understand which are the indicators that may be useful for that purpose also. But in my opinion, I suspect that we will not really have regional level data that will be available for that purpose. Anyhow, this will be for sure part of the evaluation about the cohesion policies of European Union and the role of European Union legislation for reducing gender equality. But the perspective that we will have in this project will be always a regional perspective that, of course, cannot ignore the national level, okay? Because, of course, we have a hierarchy about legislation and the chain of the decision power. But I think that the role of this point in the project will be only in the evaluation of information relating to this that we can use. We will not go in detail on this. Of course, we are at the beginning of the process of the project, so we have to evaluate. Anyhow, this is an interesting point that we will take into consideration. Relating Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Global Commitment, of course, we will consider it, but our goal is to remain basically in the framework of the European Institute for Gender Equality framework. Okay, so this is not precisely the same of the Agenda 2030, in which we have targets, specific targets. Of course, also that one is important, and I think that we will try also to understand which are the regional indicators that may be useful for this goal. But this is something a little different. what we want to do is to consider the European Institute framework, European Institute for Gender Equality framework, that is well structured from a gender studies and a gender mainstreaming perspective, and to work in that field. Of course, Agenda 2030 is very important, but when you have a target, you have to define it really clearly. I hope I answered to your question. I don't know if Sandra, she wants to add something to this answer. And then there is, I finish and then I pass the word to Sandra and to Pedro, because there is a question for them. Do you believe that the membership to the European Union has somehow helped more traditionalist members, Italy for instance, to fasten the process of gender equality? So now I leave the word to Sandra and to Pedro for completing my previous answer and to respond to this new question.
Yeah, thank you, Enrico. Yes, you answered all, but just to add something, I think the general the second question about the agenda, the Sustainable Development Goal commitment. Yes, of course, there are some general goals, and you can find these general goals that are something related with things that we already comment, that are with the end of discrimination, the gender violence, the thing that we know, but also the child marriage and female genital mutilation that we didn't mention is really important. The home care work, yes, we already mentioned it, and also is a goal inside this sustainable development. Full participation of women on equal opportunities, this we already mentioned, and sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights are also involved in that. Equal rights to economic resources, that we are speak a little about that, and use the technology and access to information and communication technology is also really interesting and really relevant, because we know with this pandemic situation that the access of technology was really unequal. And then I think that is important to puntualize this and is involved in this objective too. And the policies and laws for equality and empowerment also is highlighted in the 5 objective of Agenda 2030. I think the last question, I am not sure that if the thing is that to fasten the process of gender equality. I think that the process or the input or the engine that European Union has been done to all members are really important, really important. Of course, there are differences between the different states, of course, but I think that the important thing is that you have a very common rule, and then each state do efforts in order to get this goal. And of course, there are differences, because we know all this difference, and we need to take into account multiple things about the inside each state. But I think that the impulse, I am not sure how to express that, but the important thing that European Union has been done is the equal rule of all the members, and in this I think is a really important thing. Of course, some countries are less or get some goal in other position. Of course, we have always this difference. But if you can imagine, for example, Spain 30 years ago, you can't believe the changes and how the normative, the legacy, and all the base of the juridical body has changed since that. And I think that is a way where we have to go on, and the rhythm of each country, of course, helping for the union. Thank you so much.
Yes, related with this last question, yes, of course, it is fundamental, and in the case of the south of Europe in particular, it's very important to have these European rules that helps us to change reality, but the changes depend on the national level also, and the social model, and the welfare state, the culture itself, and the policies implemented, and the changes that represent are very slow, surely. For example, in the case of Italian labor market, the differences between men and women continue to be very important, and in this sense, more committed policies are needed. But European politics is necessary, is a necessary condition, otherwise it could be worse, then, of course.